This is now our second hour broadcasting here from Reykjavik, Iceland, ground zero, the front line in the fight between Icelandic national survival and the financier-motivated diktat of Gordon Brown, Balkenende, the European Union with Barroso, oh my God, and the International Monetary Fund of the infamous Dominique Strauss-Kahn, that French financier who specializes in destroying independent nations. We're right in the thick of things here. A lot of things going on this Friday, the 2nd of October, as we tape in Reykjavik. Ireland, a little bit to our east, is in the process of voting whether they accept this monstrous Lisbon Treaty, what they call the streamlining of European decision-making. Well, we know, thanks to Marie-France Garot, back in June of 2005, before the French rejected a similar European constitution that time, she said, this constitution, this Lisbon Treaty today, in effect, guarantees nothing but the oligarchical domination of European institutions. It will institutionalize elitism, oligarchism, make sure that bankers will forever be supreme over workers and normal people. So we're hoping that the Irish pull themselves together and vote no a second time. Because again, just like the U.S. House of Representatives had to vote twice to get the bailout through, Ireland is being forced to vote twice. Hopefully they will say no and no again. The other election that we want to point to is the German election, which took place now a few days ago on Sunday, September 27th. The German election has shown a very interesting pattern. All the large parties have lost votes. The big losers, the Social Democrats, the SPD, the German Social Democratic Party, had the worst result probably in 100 years. They're down to 22 or 23% of the vote. They're not a people's party anymore. They're not even a workers' party. That would have been better. But they're now practically a sect. They're collapsing so fast. What it shows, and this is an important lesson for the Social Democrats here in Iceland, if you're a Social Democratic Party with an important trade union component, you cannot be the servant and the toady and the lackey of bankers, financiers, hedge fund hyenas, and the rest of this congeries and zoo. You've got to defend economic populism. You've got to defend working people and working families. And if those Social Democrats in Germany don't quit, they're going to be in bad shape. Now, this is a long-term trend. Remember, the French Socialist Party under Lionel Jospin collapsed at the beginning of this decade. You'll remember when Jospin ran against Chirac. He didn't even make it into the second round. Le Pen turned out to be the main opposition for Jospin. That's how Chirac got his term in office. And now, of course, we've got Sarkozy, Narkozy. But the tendency of the Social Democratic Party is to collapse. Is now the French Socialists collapsed some years back. The German Social Democrats are now collapsing. And as soon as we have an election in Great Britain, this awful new Labour of Tony Blair and the infamous Gordon Brown is also going to collapse to a small fraction of what it is today. Here in Iceland, we've got a government with the Social Democrats and the Left Green Party. The Left Greens should also look at Germany. There we have the what I would call the warmonger Greens, the party of that awful Joschka Fischer, who was a supporter of the Iraq War. He was a Green. He was a hooligan in the Frankfurt scene 20 years ago, and then he became the pro-Bush, pro-warmonger foreign minister of Germany. Those Greens have they've gotten a few extra percent, but they've now fallen behind the other party, the so-called left party. Die Linke gained 3 or 4% in the German election, and this is important because of two things. The Die Linke is anti-Afghan war and anti-European Union Lisbon Treaty. They're against the Lisbon Treaty, and they have done rather well. They have passed the warmonger Greens in the German party system. The CSU of Bavaria lost heavily, and that means that the CDU-CSU, the so-called National Christian Democratic Bloc in Germany, actually lost 1.5% of their votes too. So the Social Democrats lost 11%. The CDU-CSU lost 1.5%. A lot of losses concentrated in the CSU, whereas the Liberal Party, unfortunately, the free market demagogue party, have gotten about 15%. They will now form a coalition with the CDU-CSU, which is going to have a relatively thin parliamentary majority. Who knows what's going to happen with that under depression, crisis, and breakdown conditions. These liberals are then followed by the left party, Die Linke, and finally the smallest of the factions in the Bundestag is going to be the warmonger Greens, who have been punished for their warmongering. So the parties here in Iceland ought to look at that. And again, everybody's waiting for that British election. Gordon Brown has been speaking in the last week at the yearly conference of the Labour Party. He's pretending that he has a chance to continue in government, but he does not. So here in Iceland, again, it's the Social Democrats, with the Prime Minister being a Social Democrat, an elderly lady, as we understand, possibly not in good health, and the left Greens going along with it. The ruling passion of the Social Democrats is to join Europe at all costs. Give up national sovereignty, give up independence, give up dignity, give up your labor force and your economic health. So let's hear some more commentary from Thorarin about this internal political situation. I'd like to ask you in particular about this thing called the citizens movement, civic movement, that then turned into a very interesting little party called The Movement, which may offer a model for us in the U.S., what we should be doing. Let's look at Iceland also as a laboratory for political developments.
Yes, Webster, indeed. For me, the Social Democrats, they are actually the major obstacle in, getting to a new policy in dealing with all this. I say the IMF and the European Union, because, as you say, the Social Democrats, they just want to join the European Union, no matter what. It seems they are willing to pay any price, and it's like they don't care how much the ISAF agreement, the higher the figure, the better actually for them. So because they are hoping for kind of like a European bailout if we join, so the Icelandic population would join. It is like they are expecting like the EU to bribe us, to bribe the population, so the Icelandic population would be revealed that the EU is promising so much, and so we could join and escape all our problems. And it's very sad. The citizen movement, or the movement we have been talking to about new ideas, it really is a bit different thing that we would like to go. Exactly, for example, with the IMF. Of course, more people now realize that what the IMF is, and we want to kick it out. And we can see on this ISAF dispute that these all hold together, the IMF, the EU, and ISAF. So it's like a blackmail. We have to pay ISAF to get the loan from IMF and also to join the European Union.
That's, of course, unacceptable. We'll be back in a minute.